Torch, Command Information Center. Monger to CIC, confirm exclusion zone. The operator confirmed the order and fired the high-energy proxy array. Not a blip showed up. Letting it run for a good 10 seconds, nothing was all there was. Exclusion zone confirmed clear, sir. We're green. Orion Propulsion Unit, 0.4 seconds after firing. Receiving a final digital confirmation, the bomb was triggered. A thick-walled hollow sphere of cubic gauche nitrogen implodes, pushing a layer of beryllium, deuterium, and lithium deuteride inwards at around 100 kilometers per second. As it reaches the center, it impacts a magnetically levitated sphere of anti-lithium, starting the fusion. Many neutrons split off of the deuterium as they fuse into helium, impacting the lithium and converting some of it into tritium, which fuses with the deuterium at a much higher rate, increasing the energy of the reaction, releasing more neutrons. This process takes less than 100 iterations before the exponential growth uses the majority of the fuel, and the core is emitting X radiation through purely black-body effects. The excess neutrons and radiation touch the case on the rear of the device, and mostly get absorbed or scattered back forwards. On the front of the device, a pile of lithium beryllium oxide absorbs the radiation and neutrons, converting the energy into heat, which then pushes against and vaporizes a tungsten plate to transfer the energy to the main ship. Although the radiation case does catch most of the high-energy radiation, a large amount of it still exits the bomb. Traveling through space at about the speed of light, hard X-rays and neutrons reach the Xlezero in less than 1,000th of a second. The outer hull, composed primarily of lightweight composites, did little to prevent the radiation from heating the helium coolant tanks to thousands of kelvins. Mostly unaffected, the photons continue in a straight line until they reach the main hydrogen tank. The huge mass of fuel absorbs almost all of the incoming neutrons, and a good portion of the X-rays, also turning from a liquid into a vapor. The frontal fuel, now a supercritical fluid, exceeded the tank's pressure rating. No pressure relief valve could possibly hope to vent gas quickly enough to dissipate the buildup. The ultra-high-strength graphene composite construction did its best, but ruptured almost immediately. The entire front composite armor array of the ship blew off, splitting into multiple ton fragments. Structural elements buckling, the ship was slammed backwards from the force of the explosive decompression. Torch Bridge. Captain Monger nodded to Carl and grabbed the intercom. We're burning in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Fire in the hole! The rear camera watched the first of many nuclear devices get loaded. Then it was slung out the back a second later. The blast shield closed. The portside cameras blazed with an inferno of white and orange as the proximity alarm started screaming. Abort! CIC, what the fuck was that? Monger yelled into the intercom. Glows on ship, sir! Sending video feed now! The first thing they saw was an orange glowing ship centered in a rapidly expanding debris field. Massive plates of glowing metal were traveling in all directions away from the main body. Gas was jetting out of random areas and causing the ship to pick up a spin. The captain grabbed the ship's controls and began blasting the port RCS in the vain hope of putting the cargo between them and the approaching debris. Carl, retract the Orion drive. All hands brace for impact. He paused for a second, then picked up the radio. Torch to Jovian Space Control. Mayday, mayday, mayday. Lays us below the port radiator to yaw us around. An unidentified vessel has experienced an explosive decompression. We have heavy debris coming towards our port side and are unable to do significant maneuvers. Establishing data link. JSC to Torch, Temp 4. Start lengthwise roll halfway into the spin so we can keep ablating the same section. A few plinks could be heard as the fastest piece of debris started to impact the vessel. Seconds later, they were pushed into their chairs as another set of alarms blared. Hull breach. Hull tank pressure. Radiator pressure. Auxiliary power failure. Xlezero. Ionizing radiation detected. The crew were forced into their harnesses as the ship lurched. All decks, damage report! Joltquap yelled into the intercom. Checking his station, a majority of the ship was marked disabled on his console. Luckily, there were no fires. They were just hit by a point-blank nuclear detonation. The pride of Iania was taken out in one hit because he wanted to play Explorer. He didn't know what to do. Looking at the rest of the command deck, his heart sank. Lannan and Jer were both unresponsive. Kovpov was dazed. He had a shattered leg and was losing blood. Shaking himself, he realized that he couldn't move his arm. Command, this is engineering. MES coils are quenching. We have auxiliary power and life support, but not much else.
Air pressure is dropping at a fast pace. The power reactor is fried. Even if we can use it here, the warp drive is overheated.
Engine room, there's a massive gash. No time!
Weapons bay. Both particle lances fried. Coil guns still intact. Overheated. Half of the missile bays got slagged. Flak missiles detonated. We have 35 decoys, 10 point defense missiles, 5 KKVs. We've lost 2 gunners, and I'm...
Medical here. Most of us are fully functional. We're preparing for casualties.
Science bay. The only survivors are myself and a linguist. Diplomats all dead. Captain, all of our film has turned black.
Captain Tothquap sealed himself to give orders.
All hands, get into pressure suits if you're uninjured, and get us airtight again. Send any free people to weapons bay and the engine deck. Get your injured to med bay. Med bay, expect serious asphyxiation, radiation sickness, and get ready to clean a lot of blood.
Should he return fire? Did they assume his ship was dead in the water? He grabbed his periscope, opening the tungsten shield that closed when the radiation warning went off. The other ship was again being hit by a laser. He adjusted the dimmer until he could just barely see the ship itself. A large section of what was previously his ship shadowed the laser strike, and it became clear that it was being shot in the side of the vessel. Seconds later, the section of debris struck the cylindrical portion of the ship, tearing a chunk out of it and spraying fuel everywhere. Why would they detonate a nuke so close to their own vessel? What the fuck was going on? Regardless, there was nothing more he could do from his station. He went to the lockers and stuffed a pressure suit on, gritting his teeth as he forced his mangled arm through it. He went over to Kovpov and tried to rouse him.
Kovpov!
Kovpov looked at him with a glassy expression before his eyes focused on Tothquap's face.
Sir...
Pressure suit up, now!
What? Who are you?
Ah, you damn it. Sorry for this.
Tothquap pulled an injector out of a pouch on his suit and stabbed it into Kovpov's chest. Kovpov screamed as the combat drug set his nervous system on fire for a few seconds.
Kovpov, pressure suit, now!
Now fully alert, Kovpov immediately reacted and got himself into a pressure suit, as best as he could with his broken leg.
We need to get Jer and Lanham to medical. The ship's losing air fast. Yes, sir!
Grabbing their crewmates, they sped off the deck. Head operator let Ern through the rest of the hard plastic plates at the huge gash in the wall, only managing to seal half of it. Grabbing a canister of foam, he began spraying, building it up at the edges. He started to bridge it when his can ran out. Breathing heavily, he crawled over and grabbed another canister.
Get more foam!
He yelled to anyone still alive as he approached and felt a suction trying to pull him out. Holding on for dear life, he locked his leg into a handhold and began bridging the gap. He jolted awake when he felt a push of the can stop. Heart pounding and breathing thinly, he heard a shout and saw a crew member flying over. Bohr threw a can of foam at him, which he caught and started spraying. He felt a shove and saw the now unconscious Bohr blowing towards the opening. Slurredly, he reached out to catch him and missed.
Fuck, no!
Speeding up as he approached the opening, Bohr slammed against the walls, exoskeleton crunching. Folding in upon himself, he was sucked into emptiness. Crying out with anger, Let Ern could do nothing but keep spraying until his canister ran out. Struggling with all of his might, he pulled himself to another emergency can and continued blasting the gash, which was now only a quarter of the original size. Screaming, he fought back the creeping unconsciousness and raged at the blackness, spraying wildly to defeat the void. Intermediate Fleet Interceptors 10, 18, 25, 32, 34, and 45. Brachystochrone trajectory towards Torch. Coast Guard Commander Jeff was hammered into his chair from the acceleration of Ship 25's gas-core nuclear thermal reactor, running at 110% power. Being debriefed only a minute ago, he let everyone in on the plan.
All right, boys. We're here to secure the UFO and offer aid. We think the ship is crippled. Ship 32 and 45, assist the Torch. Ship 10, boarding action authorized. Full armor sweep. Assume hostile occupants. Do not fire unless fired upon. Everyone else, plug holes. Identify features of the vehicle. Stay away from the engines and guns.
On his tactical HUD, the Torch and one heavily scrambled signature were visible and closing rapidly. Burning towards them, he saw them approach the halfway mark at 12 kilometers a second. With a sickening wrench, the pilot flipped the entire ship, not stopping the full power thrust at any point, as they began accelerating in the opposite direction to slow down. His vision, already graying out, struggled to focus on his display due to the vibrations of the engines, only dampened slightly by the skeletonized frame of the interceptor. The minutes passed like hours before he heard the reactor spin up, and the engines switched to arc mode. Still slowing down, they reached the debris field. He saw ships 32 and 45 fly past him and stop by the torch. Ship 10 continued into the debris field. In bulky, powered suits, Ships 10 EVA Team 1 analyzed the situation as they waited in the nose airlock. The pilot dodged what debris he could, but they could still hear the pings and clongs of particles impacting their armor. Another ship arrived and flew to the other side of the vehicle, so they could get a G-ray scan of the internals. They mapped the floor plan out, and saw areas of extreme shielding which were indicative of a reactor deck. Searching for an opening on the long, pitch-black ship, the pilot found a significant gas leak on one of the internal decks, and piloted the ship towards it. Slowing down, he aligned the airlock and fired an adhesive ring, which pulled a high tensile strength membrane along with it. Finding purchase in the ship's hull, it held fast while an expanding foam was sprayed at the joint to reinforce the connection and seal it further. The gas detector beeped red as it detected deadly amounts of ammonia, chlorine, and borane vapors. As well, there was a dangerous amount of UV light, and the atmosphere was at negative 50 degrees Celsius. He sent the data back to the hub, and they got work procuring more gas. EVA team, be aware that the atmosphere is extremely toxic and at near cryogenic conditions. At this temperature, you have 20 minutes before your suit's heat sinks become saturated and you begin expelling heat. Do what you can to avoid a hostile incident. Understood, Captain. Getting the order to breach the ship, the airlock was pumped to vacuum and opened. The leak in the ship quickly filled the space up before stabilizing. They holstered their guns before one of them stepped up with a coring drill-like device and started punching through the ship. Bulkhead composition, mainly carbon, titanium, and tungsten. Internal bulkhead thickness is about 0.4 centimeters. This shit is ridiculously hard to cut through. Warren, I think we're going to have to use a linear-shaped charge to get through this in a reasonable amount of time. Okay, Peter, here. Warren took out a few thin square rods from a holster on his side. One at a time. Don't want to risk overpressure. The rest of the team stepped back into the airlock, while Peter secured one of the rods to the bulkhead. Detonating it, he pushed his way back towards the wall and noted that it was one of the dirtiest cuts he'd ever seen. Connecting the corner of the cut to the gash already in the bulkhead, he detonated another one, completing the square. He grabbed the whole section and brought it back to the airlock for study. They entered the room and stopped dead in their tracks. As they shone light into the room, they could make out 5 bodies floating about, with 3 more strapped in chairs. Peter saw one latched onto a ladder, holding a fire extinguisher-looking thing pointed at them. Seeing no movement, he looked back at the wall next to him and noticed a large pile of foam around the edges of the previous gash. Confirming his suspicion that the alien was not holding a weapon, he slowly entered the room. He couldn't tell if the alien was awake or not, but he thought he saw it breathing. Nothing responded to their entry. Thinking quickly, he decided that they were probably suffering severe hypoxia. Looking around, he spotted what appeared to be a door and jumped over to it. I'm going to equalize the atmosphere of this room and the next corridor before breaching it. Secure the aliens in the room, just gently tie them up or something so they don't stab us in the back if they wake up. Okay, Olsen, you keep watch while we clear the rest of the ship. Everyone nodded in confirmation and got to work. He radioed back to the ship. Captain, how long until we get more of this gas manufactured? They say they'll have it here in another hour. Switching the bit on his drill from a hole saw to a twist drill, he started drilling through the door. A minute later, he had punctured a hole there and could hear the gas flowing. A quick check showed that the room they were in was only at 10% of the pressure of the other side. As the room equalized, he noticed how oddly proportioned everything looked. He oriented himself to what he assumed the ground was and stood up. His head almost touched the ceiling despite him not being exceptionally tall. Looking at the unconscious aliens, they were each about half the height of his team members. Although they looked somewhat like bugs, they weren't exactly spindly as might be expected. Each of them was bipedal, but much squatter to the ground. Their exoskeleton was bright orange with a pearlescent shine. Looking at their faces, he could make out 4 eyes and some sort of antenna. He could also see that they were all breathing, so they were probably alive. Checking to make sure his video feed was still going, he took a perimeter of the room to make sure there were no surprises. Hearing a bit of a commotion, he rushed back to see that the fire extinguisher alien was active and struggling against Warren, who was trying to grapple it without getting slashed by the thing's claws. Calm down! Calm down! Everyone else, back away from the alien! Getting the struggling alien into a headlock, Warren took a few heavy blows but managed to get it stationary until it stopped struggling. Warren, how strong is it?
Oof. Hey, Peter. It's fucking strong. I had to turn my suit's servo motors on. It seems to be out of juice, though.
I'm going to orient you so you're standing on the floor. Slowly lower your force and try to not spook the alien. Fuck, I'm going to try and make first contact. Light Ern was jostled awake. Taking a deep breath of fresh air, he realized that he must have been successful. Opening his eyes, he saw his crew being tied up and looked directly into a group of robots boarding his ship.
Holy shit!
Struggling to escape, he cut a rope that was tied around his wrists and writhed in the grasp of one of the robots, breaking free and slashing wildly at it with his foreclaws. Spinning around in low gravity, the thing backed away before jumping off a pipe and grappling him.
Get off me!
He screamed, elbowing it in the chest as it tried to get a hold of him. Struggling madly, he felt his strength waning from the exertion. The thing's grip suddenly grew much stronger as it got him into a deadlock.
Fuck you!
He gasped out. His view suddenly oriented itself the right way up as he saw another of the robots get in front of him. It slowly reached for its gun.
So, this is how I die. Fuck's sake.
Unholstering the rifle, the robot put it on the ground and held his hands up in surrender.
What?
He felt a grip of the first robot loosening up. The door to the room opened, and the captain and pilot both burst in. Reaching the engine room, Kovpav and Tothquap looked through the door. All Kovpav saw was his crewmates being held by a robot, with another one reaching for a gun, before his vision went green. Slamming the door open, he didn't even feel his legs disintegrating as he flung himself towards the gunner with his claws extended. Peter had just put his gun down when he felt an impact on his back. Suit blaring alarms, he activated full power and tried to rip the thing off his back, feeling huge gashes in his arms as he grabbed the alien and threw it across the room. Oxygen, 30 seconds, oxygen, foreign contaminant detected. Oh shit, oh fuck! You could feel the pressure of his tank rupturing, pushing against him. He heard Warren yell to GTFO, and he decided that'd be a good idea. Warren had just relaxed his grip on the alien when the door blasted open and another alien flung itself at the squad leader. Seeing both of his main and reserve oxygen tanks burst and gas spraying everywhere, he knew that he had less than a minute before he was going to expire. Get to the airlock! Looking over to the other alien that entered the room, he saw it coughing up blood and looked over to the cloud of pure oxygen that had exploded out of the tank. Shit! Get the aliens to the next room! Now! Confirming that all of the tied-up aliens were grabbed by the team, he jumped over to where Peter threw the mad alien, grabbing it, and headed back to the opening door. Seeing the coughing alien, he grabbed it as well before running through the open door and slammed it shut. Keep going! This room's not sealed! Getting to the next door, he didn't know how to open it. Luckily for him, the bloody alien typed in a code and pointed to the left. Left! Left! Letting the alien guide him, they all barreled through the maze of the ship until they stumbled into a large white room, where many more injured aliens were being tended to. Okay, team, we're going to cut their bonds, drop them off, and sit quietly in the corner. Nobody even touch their rifles. Do you understand? Hearing a chorus of affirmatives, he checked his line of communication out and saw that it was dead. Tothquap and Kovpav arrived in the engine room. Tothquap saw a robot put his gun on the ground with his hands up.
He's surrendering.
Kovpav made an ear-splitting war scream and blasted through the door, aimed directly at the robot who placed the gun on the ground.
Wait!
He watched as an enraged Kovpav used his arm claws to slice through the rear of the robot, causing a black cloud of gas to be emitted before the robot grabbed him and threw him against the wall. He felt his throat closing up as the gas filled the room. Coughing up blood, he saw a gash in the left arm of his own suit. He could barely think until another robot grabbed him and bolted out of the room, following the pack of robots carrying more of his unconscious crew. Coughing some more, he still smelled the gas following them. Jostling through the crowd, his robot came to the next bulkhead door. He quickly opened it and pointed left towards the medical deck. Luckily, it seemed to understand and blasted rockets to propel them at unimaginable speeds up the ladder to the medical deck. Guiding him all the way to the medical bay, he felt his lungs disintegrating from the poison gas. As they burst through the door, he gasped, "Friendly!" before the robots put him on the bed and started cutting the binds of his crew.